Hi, everybody, and welcome to another live episode of the Double A Team podcast live stream. I'm your host, Stephen Negishi, and with me, as always, from the Awful Announcing Sports Blog, the associate editor and my co-host, Ken Fang. Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you, Stephen?
I'm doing all right. We apologize. We're running a little bit late behind on our usually scheduled at the top of the hour, and it was not the Monday that we normally record. So, but nonetheless, we have plenty of sports to talk about, Ken, and obviously the big news that we're going to be discussing today is the Shohei Ohtani and the sports betting conundrum and the media's coverage of it. So, in case you haven't, if you've been living under a rock, which I hardly doubt that there is, Shohei Ohtani's longtime translator Ippei Mizuhara was fired last week. I think maybe we found out about it Thursday. Over illegal gambling using Ohtani's money. And this was also, a news that broke out while the Dodgers and the San Diego Padres were playing in the, their Korea series last week at this time. And, Ken, Awful Announcing, obviously you do a lot of editing and coverage on this matter. Give me your overall thoughts on the way that this news broke and how Ohtani and maybe his handlers have handled or mishandled this process so far.
Well, there's some people who have come out and made accusations about Ohtani without knowing all the facts. Okay,
exactly. Yeah,
and there's some people who made assumptions like, "Oh, Ohtani, there's no way Ohtani has could not know about everything, or he has gambled, or he gave the money to his interpreter to gamble for him." Again, we don't know that. Okay, we only know what we know. All right, and that is that the interpreter has been fired. Yes, the story has changed from when it first reported to now to where it is now. Now, there's reporters who felt that Ohtani could be asking questions, and there was one person who was on X, and not a very famous guy, but he just made a very stupid accusation. Said Ohtani should be forced to ask questions in English and forced to talk in English without an interpreter. What is that going to do? Okay,
exactly.
He's not very well versed in English. He
understands English, but in the context of like what you and I are doing, it would be hard for him to do like a long standing interview, whether it's with the ESPN or ABC or NBC, CNN, and that matter on his own. It's difficult, yes.
And what good would that do? I mean, he's going to get a gotcha question that he's not going to really get. And he's going to say something, and that everyone's going to pounce on it. So what good is that going to do? Now, yes, Ohtani could have maybe he made a statement on Monday to the media. Basically, no reporters were allowed, but he did make a statement and stating that he had no knowledge of what this interpreter was doing. Now, I know some people feel that wasn't enough, and I understand that. But at the same time, you have to understand that Ohtani is trying to get his head around this. Now, if you believe everything that he just learned about it, fine. There's some people who aren't going to believe that, and again, that's fine with them too. But we have to learn all the facts. You just can't jump on everything. And I just don't appreciate some people who say, "Oh, well, he must have known all along." We don't know that. We have no idea. So, and just like I don't want to make this comparison, but it's just like when we had found out in regards to Princess Kate and her situation, in which everyone was speculating that about what's going on, and then she finds out, Kate Middleton has to reveal that she has cancer. Okay, everyone's tune changed. I'm not saying that's the whole thing, but let's find out the whole facts before we jump to conclusions. Before we all find out that what everyone's thinking is not what the actual thinking, what the actual facts are. So that's where I am at, Stephen. What about you?
No, I totally agree. I think if you look at the so-called haters online, that I have a little bit of a tiff with not too long ago. This was a Giants fan. I think it was a female fan on Twitter that kind of thinks that I'm giving him a pass because he can hit 40 or 50 home runs, and that I'm a hypocrite for being that and all that stuff. Look, I'm a full disclosure. I'm a Japanese American. I'm fully versed in Japanese language, both speaking and writing. I followed Ohtani's coverage as well, a little bit in both U.S. and Japan as well. And I think here in America, to a degree, I think there's people who wants to make this as if it's another Pete Rose type of situation.
Right.
There's people who, maybe want to accuse Ohtani for, literally throwing games, or at least using Ippei as a sacrificial lamb because Ohtani has a gambling problem. And that, one guy that I had an interaction with, it's not about, winning money. It's about like thrill seeking and all that kind of stuff, which I find it to be a little, put off by that kind of comment, because a guy who makes about $70 million for the next 10 years, and obviously he has deferred a lot of that money, during that time, and then he makes about, close to, that much money in endorsements, mostly, certainly coming from Japan. And now you're starting to see him even here in the stateside, with the New Balance commercials and advertisements. And, Ohtani is not hurt for the money. Okay. He doesn't need to throw games here and there, or, throw an off-speed pitch and then serve up a home run in the next one, or things like that, just to, make a money. And then the accusations of him deferring money to, give money so that he can pay off, Mizuhara down the road, or stuff like that, are all kinds of, craziness. And somewhat, I think the attacks are, very much, to a degree, racial as well. Now, do I think that Ohtani needs to perhaps, speak more on this matter, or at least pay more attention to this matter? Yeah, I would think so. It's an unfortunate incident that maybe he got caught up in the middle of this. Just because he was wearing like a Lamar Jackson uniform doesn't mean he watches and gambles on other sports. Just because he was attending a Laker game, or a Rams game shortly after he signed with the Dodgers, he wasn't there to gamble on DraftKings, using maybe Ippei's account, and gamble on the game itself. So you can see there on your site, Ken, Bomani Jones is claiming that because his innocence, because he's Asian.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
I don't get that. I don't get that. I know Bomani is all things, but this garbage shit really doesn't fly with me. And I'm sorry about using the poor language, because there are actually people like that, regardless of whether you're Black, Hispanic, or even Caucasian. You actually think that Asian people get a lot of passes, which doesn't work in today's society, given especially since what happened to our community during COVID. So
yeah, and especially when people say that Asians are the quote unquote model race or the or model minority, okay,
Right.
because they do things differently than other minorities, which is not true. That is just one of the most ridiculous arguments I've ever heard. And again, this falls into that. And I respect Bomani Jones. I've respected him for a long time. We follow each other on X, but I just don't. I didn't get that at all. I don't say because he's Asian, he's going to be likely seen as innocent. What does that even mean? Okay.
Exactly.
What is that supposed to mean? That we don't have our own vices? We're not evil. We don't act the same way as other minorities or other races. That is just again a ridiculous argument about the model minority, which again is not true. So again, things like this only further uh, uh, pretty much confirms not confirms, but continues and perpetuates that stereotype against Asians that we have been fighting for years, Stephen. So
Right.
the whole reason behind the show, the Double A team, was to fight anti-Asian behavior in the sports media. We have
Or
been
just in society in general too.
and in society in general. But our mission statement is to call out this type of behavior, and that's how we started this 3 years ago. It's been amazing that we've done this for 3 years, Stephen. And the fact is that we'll call out behavior like this, and this is pretty much what we're seeing right now in the Ohtani situation. Um, People jumping to assumptions because he's Asian.
Right.
People
Mhm.
jumping to assumptions because he's Japanese, he's going to be seen in a different way, or because he doesn't speak English, he can't, he must be doing this because of that. And A doesn't necessarily mean B, and it doesn't really justify C. So
Exactly.
I just want people just to hold off here. I've seen people who I've respected for a long time make stupid assumptions about this, saying, "Oh, because Otani's been with his interpreter for so long, there's no way he hasn't. He doesn't. There's no way that he hasn't known about what's going on." You know, we have seen athletes in the past be duped by people and their so-called friends, by agents who have bilked them of money. So this is
Exactly.
so I'm not saying this is the same situation, but this is similar to what we've seen in other athletes in the past who have lost money because of advisors or agents or people close to them taking
Mhm.
their money. And because they were saying, "Hey, look, you're close to me. I like you to handle this. You're my brother, or I
Right.
feel as close as my brother. You're part of my family. You see in this family, so I give you access to this. And if I go to the bank, everyone's going to make a big deal. Whereas you are not as famous as me, and you don't have the people are not aware of what you do as much as me. So you can go to the bank and handle what is some of my affairs for me." And we see what happens with what have happened in the past, and with other athletes. So I'm just going to say, just let's wait for all the facts to come out before you jump to a conclusion. That and some of the conclusions I've seen so far are just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm highlighting his quotes here. We tend to mythologize them in some interesting ways, Jones said. I think in large part because we've watched them. We've watched all of them kung fu movies. Uh, we have a tendency to think Asians are very solemn and very normal with a different strain of morality. I think that's how a lot of people view Asians in our society. What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. Um, excuse me. It doesn't make. Again, I don't know where Bomani was coming with there. Again, it's all part of that model minority myth that many people perpetuate with Asians. And it just gets me angry because I know Mobani is smarter than that, but I just think he just made
I
a
don't get it, man. I don't get it.
it's a stupid error, and it's a stupid thing, and I certainly hope he'll see the error of his ways on that.
Well, a guy who used to work with Pablo Torre on ESPN and Dan Lebatard's network, or at least he still does, come on from time to time. I think this is a poor choice of wording, and it's just it just pisses me off. I know this guy has been somewhat of a provocateur and has been very outspoken when it comes to the the racial inequality and injustice in the past. Like, listen, man. I mean, like, what did the Asian community do to you in personally, or like African American community in general? For God's sakes. I'm not saying that Bomani speaks on behalf of the entire African American community, and that maybe he's just basically trying to portray like here the ignorances that they're trying to play it out right now. They, as in Ohtani and his handlers and his representatives.
Mm-hmm.
You think that that works if you think these silly Americans are going to believe it. So he's basically also clowning Americans in general as well, and gaslighting at the same time in regards to the the coverage here.
Mm-hmm.
This was obviously written by your colleague here, Brandon Clean, here. So it's so interesting, and even the media members like Howie Rose, the New York Mets play-by-play guy on radio, basically called out saying that the New York media wouldn't tolerate them. Like, what are you trying to get at? He's not even in New York, and of course, because one of the reasons he probably didn't sign, if you want to call him a wuss like that, is because people like Howie Rose jumping on and try to portray media needs to have some sort of an answer on the spot immediately. Like, this is a very, very delicate information that involves the feds, the FBI, and even the Department of Homeland Security now are getting involved in this, because it's a wiring fraud charges could be brought up as well.
And even if you want Ohtani to say something, I'm sure his lawyers and his advisors are going to say, hey, look, let's be careful on this situation. And I'm sure that statement was very carefully worded and went through several advisors. We've seen people in the past, and especially, and we'll probably be talking about this later, Kim Mulkey making stupid statements and a Streisand effect about an article that hasn't even coming out yet. So I'm sure that, and that's not a very good PR thing. So in regards to PR and knowing how advisors look for the way to be handled, look for issues to be handled, I would think that they would be appreciative of how Ohtani's advisors and handlers have decided to face this situation by not totally having, granted, as Stephen and I both said, you're not going to get a total interview with Ohtani yet, and maybe that's going to come down the line. Maybe it'll come with someone who has had coverage of him in the past. Now, I did a quick podcast with TJ Reeves yesterday in the Last Word in Sports Media, and I did say that I don't know where the story now. Perhaps we're going to get more of the story that's coming out. It's probably not going to come from the Los Angeles media, because the Los Angeles Times has been gutted by their current owner. So and they don't even have a Dodgers beat writer right now. So is it going to come from someone who's from Japan who reports? Probably not, because they want the access to. It might be something like more of a Jeff Passan or someone like that, or someone has more national media experience like a Ken Rosenthal. But we still have to wait on this. And again, let's wait for all the facts to come out before we just jump to a conclusion here, because it's really the speculation that has come out is just like rampant, and people just making these wild assumptions that are just unnecessary. And we just really have to wait. Let's just wait for all the things to come out before we make a conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, this story will not go away. And, I had a pleasure of having conversations with Angels beat reporter Jeff Fletcher on Monday afternoon. And, he gave me some interesting tidbit about one time seeing Ippei Mizuhara at a casino in Cleveland. I lived in Ohio. I've been to Cleveland several times. It's a casino that is basically connected to a hotel, like literally within a walking distance from the Cavaliers arena Rocket Mortgage Arena, and then not too far away from is the former Indians, now Guardians Stadium, Progressive Field. So they're all within walking distance. And he one time ran into him playing poker at a table. But Jeff didn't seem to say that he was losing a lot of money or winning or anything of that matter either. So
But
obviously,
as you pointed out,
he did say he was there. He was there one time that he saw him at a casino in Cleveland. So obviously, there is a validity to the Mizuhara maybe having some sort of a gambling addiction. But I don't know how much of an extent that Mizuhara's gambling and then problems and debt went into. Certainly, it's very, very difficult, when Ohtani and perhaps most of the Japanese players, I think in general, they struggle with the language and also the the cultural barriers, which for every guy like Ohtani and Hideki Matsui and others and Hideo Nomo who have succeeded, there are countless Japanese players who have failed because A, they didn't have the ability to adjust in the major leagues, and also B, they just couldn't adjust culturally, both on and off the field. So I think that Ohtani certainly deserves the benefit of the doubt, and without his longtime companion and somebody who has supported him all these years, Mizuhara, obviously, Ohtani is kind of like in an island of his own. That's probably borrowing a phrase from Tim Keon, who wrote the Ohtani's current situation on ESPN that came out today. And it's funny that people are making assumptions about the Dodgers, being obviously Dodger haters wanting the downfall of the Dodgers for spending, that ridiculous amount of money on both Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, which is kind of funny and telling, of course. And, we'll find out more. I hope this doesn't turn into like some sort of a jingoistic stuff about, we should never sign any Japanese players anymore because of their gambling addiction, or they can't speak a word of English or something like that. Like we've been seeing so many of that coming out. Mm-hmm. So, this is something that it is worth watching. Personally, I don't mind being accused of being a bias and being stupid and naive, but I do believe that Ohtani, who has been very, very driven from the time he was little to where he is now. I don't think that he cared much about gambling on other sports. But I do believe that he has to get his, story straight. Because, the American media won't tolerate that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, you go to a story. I mean, the media has been driven ever since like Watergate, trying to unearth things, and if a story like Watergate, deservedly so, and the Pete Rose story, yes, absolutely, because Pete Rose lied about it, and for years lied about it, and then finally sheepishly admitted with his tail between his legs. But again, comparing the Ohtani situation to the Rose situation, those are two completely different things. Yes, gambling is involved. Yes, money is involved. Yes, millions of dollars are involved. But I don't think, again, don't know the situation. Again, I'm agreement with you, Stephen. And if we were proven wrong, we'll admit it. I don't think Ohtani would be throwing games, at least at this point. And as you say, he
doesn't need to for the money purposes.
He's not desperate for money. So, And I know people say, "Oh, there's the thrill, and there's the thrill of trying to do something, and you're always competitive." Yes, athletes are always competitive; it never leaves them. But again, You don't know Ohtani. I don't know Ohtani. Steven doesn't know Ohtani. We don't know the situation. But again, let's let the story play out before we jump to any conclusions and find ourselves having to apologize for something stupid that we've said in regard to this story.
Absolutely. Eventually the truth will come out. And the reason they're not speaking on this matter is, of course, when you have federal agencies getting involved, you don't want to be out there blabbering and try to prove a point. There's no need to do that. I don't think that MLB and the federal agencies are in cahoots, being silent or try to protect Ohtani like some conspiracy theorist would like to say. And this is not another Pete Rose type situations, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I think we want to touch on, now that we've been discussing this, is that the sports gambling in this country has kind of really reached a point of no return. I think it already has, but I think it's been drifting and going towards in that direction for quite a while now. And unfortunately, when you have a biggest star in the world involved, as I properly titled Ohtani and the Sports Gambling Conundrum, I should say at least conundrum in America. I think we have kind of reached a tipping point in this country, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, now ever since the Supreme Court allowed sports gambling to be legal, we're now in the sports league, especially the NFL, have decided, okay, we're gonna embrace it. The DraftKings, the sports betting agencies like the Bally's have all come in with their own sports books. Sports states like Rhode Island, where I live, sports gambling is legal, and now you have it's available to kids everywhere. I mean, kids can now gamble. I mean, kids want to gamble. 11-year-olds. It's not an exaggeration. So it's the proliferation, right, and it's just getting ridiculous. So we just have. I think it's leagues embraced it way too quickly, Steven. And I think you're going to play a great clip here from the Cleveland Cavaliers head coach JB Bickerstaff in regards to this, about now how sports fans are reacting now that sports gambling is legal, especially in the crowd. I'm very concerned that we may see violence by some fans, angry that they lost the head of the game live in the stadium. You go ahead and play.
I'm going to play a clip here.
We've had our own. I personally have had my own instances with, some of the sports gamblers where they got my telephone number and were sending me, crazy messages about where I live and my kids and all that stuff. So it is a dangerous game and a fine line that we're walking for sure. It brings added pressure. It brings, a distraction to the game that can be difficult for players, coaches, referees, everybody that's involved in it. And I think that, we really have to be careful, with how close we let it get to the game and the security of the people who are involved in it, because, again, it does carry a weight. A lot of times the people who are gambling, like this money, pays their light bill or pays their rent. And then the emotions that come from that. So I do think we're walking a very fine line, and we have to be extremely careful in protecting everybody who's involved. There's no doubt about it that it's crossed the line. The amount of times where, I'm standing up there and we may have a 10-point lead and the spread is 11 and people are yelling at me to leave the guys in so that we can cover the spread. Like, it's ridiculous. But again, I understand the business side of it, the nature of the business of it. But I mean, it is something that I believe has gone too far.
And a very good point by Bickerstaff there. It has gone too far. I know that once you allow the genie out of the bottle, it's very difficult to bring it back in. But I think the leagues have went too far right now to embrace the gambling. And the NFL, which once at one time used to deny that gambling existed on games, now they're totally into it. And of course, ESPN, and this was pointed out by Awful Announcing and by many people, that while Ohtani was making his statements, ESPN had gambling lines below his in the bottom line below his below the picture. So a little bit ironic there, and also a little bad optics there by ESPN too. But let's just put it this way: the gambling, as you mentioned, the gambling aspect is out there. It's going to be very difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. So where's this going to end? It's going to be very interesting, Stephen. And as you mentioned there in the graphic that you have in the banner below us, it's just going to get uglier. And as Bickerstaff mentioned, he's been getting nothing but grief from gamblers in the crowd over stuff that he does. And I'm really concerned that we could see violence in the crowd down the line in regards to a lost bet, or why a coach is leaving somebody in, or a point that, or a bad beat, as Scott Van Pelt likes to put on. I mean, it's a very entertaining segment that he has on SportsCenter. Bad beats where the gambling or the hook or the point spread has been missed or been beaten by a shot at the end, a meaningless shot at the end. So I'm going to be, I'm very fearful of something like that could happen.
Yeah, I think JB Bickerstaff has already, gave a chilling story of the verbal abuse that he's faced, not just I think in home, but also on the road as well. Not too long ago, I think we heard a story of a former Vanderbilt quarterback. I don't even remember his name. Said to somebody on podcast that he was approached by an Italian mob to throw away a game, and that he also insinuated that the Alabama players, did the same or something like that. Now, I highly doubt that without any credible evidence to it. When it comes to sports gambling, when it was illegal, we've seen in TVs and movies in the past, Ken, that there's always a bookie involved, and the one involving Ippei Mizuhara was a illegal bookie in California. And usually, if it's a bookie, normally they are tied with mobs, gangs, affiliations. So, we've heard stories about, the Black Sox scandals and other instances where, players, threw game away to, cover the gambling debt, or, because they were getting threats, or they had their own, gambling issues, gambling debts that they have piled up, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't about, like Michael Jordan, spending, close to, in the six figures or even seven figures playing high stake pokers and or in casinos. This is a real thing now, and every day you see, on FS1 or ESPN, or even regular, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox channels. You see about the lines. And also the sponsors, DraftKings, FanDuel, ESPN Bet now. ESPN has their own network, their own, betting avenue now. So it is all over. It's everywhere. And then you hear stuff, and then also on radio as well. So, and then when they tell you about, you get like deposits up to, certain amount of money for the first, amount that you put in or bet on, et cetera, et cetera. It is easy to get hooked on, trying to lure young people into it, especially college kids, and maybe now into, maybe making its way into high school kids now. And it just makes the viewing of sports less fun, because it's all about hitting that prop bet or hitting the parlays and stuff like that.
Right. And the I went down, and you see it at every casino that you go to now. There's a sports book, whether it's at the Encore, which is in Boston, where I like to frequent to go for buffets. I'll admit the gambling casinos do have great buffets, so I go there. I eat a lot there. The same thing, of course, with the Rhode Island casinos as well. They have their own, they have MGM, of course, has their own, depending on the state you go to and what state has a contract. That's where you can do the bettings. And again, you mentioned FanDuel, you mentioned DraftKings, you mentioned all these companies which have actually tried to get in on it. And you mentioned the networks. Every network seems to have a gambling expert. They always have a gambling analyst now. CBS Sports HQ, which is the network for CBS Sports, not CBS Sports Network, but their own over-the-top online network. They have an hour show that's devoted to gambling, which is hosted by Eric Casillas. So we have all this now. It's all as I mentioned, the genie is out of the bottle. You can't put it back in, but maybe you can slow it down. I don't know how they're going to do that, but the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, they've all embraced it. It's now to the point where the gambling houses have monitored and said, hey, look, we've noticed that there is some interesting activity on a game. This was also in tennis in Europe back in the aughts, where there was an issue with some activity over matches that were bet. They said it was quite interesting that it might have been some players that bet on their own matches and might have thrown matches. So it's going to be at that point where the gambling casinos may have to be the ones that actually police this, Steve. And I hate to see that, because policing your own industry, as we've seen, especially like with Boeing policing itself and the safety issues, it's not easy to do. It's not good to do. And it gets to a point where you're just going to be, again, I hate to see what may happen when a fan gets angry about losing a bet.
Absolutely. We've seen that with the stadiums. Inside the stadium, I remember I went to Indianapolis to watch a Colts game. They had a MGM, gambling hall inside the Lucas Oil Stadium.
Interesting.
So interesting. And the Cubs, they're also building a place outside, just literally next to Wrigley Field, a place where they can, make bets now. Probably through Circus Sports or whatever, whatever that they're being sponsored by. So it is everywhere. Even if you go just to, watch a game by yourself or with a family, which obviously has become a lot more and more challenging because of the expenses, the rising costs, and it's always been expensive to go, but it's probably has gotten a lot more expensive. And obviously with the gambling aspect of it, watching the game isn't as fun as it might used to be. So, and I do worry that if somebody like JB Bickerstaff has to worry about himself and his families, I would imagine that the players are constantly maybe worried about, being honey trapped or, running into the wrong crowd and obviously being extorted, stuff like that too. So I just hope that, we'll definitely keep an attention. We'll keep updates on the Shohei Ohtani and Ippei Mizuhara situation. And, we're certainly, obviously make, corrections in regards to the situations. But I do believe that the media comparing or at least wanting some sort of a Pete Rose type situation, I think it's a total clown show, and then indicating that the Asians like him will get a benefit of the doubt, like, Bomani Jones saying is totally out of line, and it just kind of makes Ken and I really, really angry. So.
Absolutely, 100%. But again, we'll keep an eye on the story. We'll continue to monitor it, and if we continue to see any behavior like we have seen this week, which has been absolutely horrendous, we will call it out.
All right, Ken, let's change subject and talk about a little more of interest. NCAA Tournament. The action resumes tomorrow with Sweet 16, and I'm sure you've seen your handful of games, late nights, and so forth.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but tell me what has stood out to you in the kind of like the first two rounds of the tournament?
Well, I've been paying attention to both tournaments. I'll start with the women's because they're fresh in my mind. First of all, similar to what we have seen with the reporting on Ohtani, the reporting now is turning on Caitlin Clark. Over the last year, up until maybe a couple of weeks ago, it's been very, referential. People putting her on a pedestal, and now it just seems to be going the other way because people seem to be tired of Caitlin Clark, and now people are beginning to call out some of her behavior on the court. If she were a man, I don't think that this would be an issue, but she's one of those people who is asking fans to get into the game. She's raising her arms to get the fans into it, and some people say she complains too much. Where is this? If you take a look at Draymond Green or take a look at anybody on the NBA, they complain about every foul call. So I don't see why, So I think people are getting a little bit tired of Caitlin Clark, but I think people still watch because the ratings have shown it. So, and she is going to be in the regional coming up against Colorado in a potential rematch on Iowa with LSU going into the Albany 2 region, which is coming up this weekend. As far as the men is concerned, Stephen, a lot of fun storylines. Of course, the NCAA men's tournament was on its way to a record men's rating, but unfortunately, we saw a couple of blowouts on Sunday with Duke blowing and UConn, the two big teams. And I know everybody likes to see Duke lose, but let me just put it this way. As much as we love to see upsets in the first round, and especially Oakland over Kentucky was a great one, we also have to realize that you also want some heavy hitters and some blue bloods going into the second tournament to hook the casual viewers. Again, you want to see upsets in the first round, but you also want those brand name teams to go in the second round, and you have it with UConn and Duke. Duke is going to be in the Sunday 5:00 slot on CBS in the regional there in the South region. If they make it that far, they get a potential matchup with Houston. So it's going to be interesting to see. Those are some of the things. Oakland and Kentucky was great upset to watch. Yale with this upset also going in as well, and also James Madison, another great upset too. I thought they were going to put up a better fight against Duke, but Duke was trying to put a message out on their game on Sunday by blowing out James Madison very early. So I got to say that UConn still is the number 1 seed and the team to knock off, although Houston looks very good right now. And Purdue actually managed to get rid of a demon by their 2 good games or by advancing the Sweet 16, although their road gets now tougher as they go into the region in the Midwest.
Yeah, upsets are definitely a staple in the NCAA tournaments at this time of the year, and there's no question about it. And that's what makes it, great about this whole tournament. Looking at the Sweet 16 matchups right now, you have UConn and San Diego. That's a rematch of last year's championship, right? I believe.
Yeah.
Or was it? Yeah. So you have already, 2, teams that met in the championships last year facing each other here.
Mm-hmm.
Duke, Houston, obviously, Houston has been on a tear. They are, the number 1 overall seed, I believe, right now. It will be interesting to see how much of a fight that the Duke can put up in this one. And down below here in the South, I believe, North Carolina State has been on a tear. They won 5 games in 5 nights consecutively in the ACC tournament. That momentum is so far carried into the tournament. They got by Oakland, who beat Kentucky. They beat Oakland in the overtime, I believe, and now they face Marquette. Very interesting here.
Yeah, and North Carolina is the right now. They're the double. I think they're an 11 seed, Stephen, if I'm not mistaken. So they have a chance here to make a magical run, similar to what North Carolina State did back in 1983. Are they going to make it to the finals? Or the Final Four? That still is. We still have to wait to see that, but I do have to think UConn, which is the top overall seed, they're going to be the ones to beat, in my opinion. They don't have to travel that far until the Final Four. They had to go to Brooklyn to start the first 2 rounds. They're going to be playing in Boston this weekend. So again, not much of a travel for them from stores. So I do think, to be honest with you, UConn is going to get out of the East region. Duke or Houston coming out of the South. Purdue has a very good shot, but I think the shakiest number 1 seed is North Carolina out west, Stephen.
Well, you can see that basically a lot of the top 5 seeds or higher seeds remaining here right now, and UConn, obviously you mentioned short distance certainly factors in. My team Illinois finally made it to the Sweet 16. They face Iowa tomorrow in a very contrasting style. Illinois has so far blew away Morehead State, even though they struggled early on. They completely dominated Duquesne from start to finish. Iowa, as you can see, they are more of a defensive team. They play very good defense, and it's going to be a very contrasting style. But whoever comes out here, hopefully give UConn a good battle here. North Carolina and Alabama, I think North Carolina could squeeze in. Clemson and Arizona, again, this is a very interesting matchup. I'm not sleeping on Clemson after the way they defeated Baylor, which is a higher seed, of course. Mm-hmm. And then if you look here, Gonzaga manhandled Kansas, and Gonzaga is obviously no longer what you call a Cinderella or somebody that sneaks upon anymore, given their tournament, success. Right. So I'll be very curious to see how much can Gonzaga put up a fight against, Purdue, against Zach Edey, and Tennessee and Creighton 2-3. Certainly no surprises, no problems early on, and Tennessee and Creighton obviously have been in the top 10 conversations for a long time, and whoever comes out of there should be. If Gonzaga ends up, winning this one against Purdue, I would not be shocked if Gonzaga goes on another Final Four run, against the winner of Tennessee and Creighton. So we shall see there too as well. And I do think that I want to touch bases on the comments made by recently regarding the tournament's expansion. I know Tom Izzo and maybe Ken, you could add whoever said it, but there have been a lot of complaints about the mid majors getting more slots to the tournament and not enough big teams. I think it was Greg Sankey, of the SEC commissioner, right, or complaining about. I thought it was nothing more than a sour grapes, and I think it was just such an embarrassing. Comments made by the people who are in charge of the organization. Look, the expansion is certainly coming, whether we like it or not. And I think it's kind of interesting that there have been discussions about expanding the tournament teams at the same time where you have people like Greg Sankey and Tom Izzo openly complaining about big Power 5 conferences, maybe not enough getting love or getting slots. Rick Pitino said the same thing, obviously, as well. So,
and let's say this: the SEC didn't do very well in this tournament. I guess Tennessee advanced, Alabama did go, but Auburn lost. Let's call a spade here. Craig Sankey, his complaints are just stupid. I mean, is the SEC the richest power conference in the country? Yes, it is. They have a contract. The ratings should prove this, especially in football. But let's just put it this way. I thought that the mid-majors, with the experience of their guards, really showed you really can't have a freshman-laden team like John Calipari has tried to show with Kentucky. They were defeated. The first-year kids looked nervous against Oakland, and Oakland deserved to win that game. And
exactly.
I don't want to hear about the SEC deserving more teams when a lot of your teams lost in the first round. So Greg Sankey's got to shut up. Okay, he's just got to shut up and just take his medicine and say, hey, look, the reason why we love the NCAA tournament is things like this. You see Yale with an upset. You see James Madison with an upset. You see Oakland with an upset. And people thinking, oh, where's Oakland? Is that in the Bay Area? No, they're in Michigan. People are finding out about
exactly.
Oakland. And just the same way we found about St. Peter's 2 years ago. So I think that it's just great to see. We want stories like this. It's people love to see and want to root for an underdog. And if you're going to put in 10 teams from the Big Ten and 10 teams from the SEC, you take a spot from the mid-majors and lose a great story. So I'm not in favor of expansion. I think the field of 68 is great. Every year, do we see bad omissions like Indiana State this year and some of the Big East teams that deserve to get in? Yes, we do. But that's the whole glory about the tournament. Play your way in. And yes, that Indiana State had a higher net ranking than the highest net ranking to be omitted from the tournament at 23. But there are teams like Providence who didn't deserve to get in. Seton Hall didn't deserve to get in. So, you need to play your way in and get your way into the tournament. And, and yes, Virginia was a bad choice because of the horrible way they played in the tournament in the first four last week. And maybe a Big East team should have been in there instead of them. But at the same time, that's the glory of having a tournament like this. We can talk about this until we're blue in the face. But again, it's a great story for 3 weeks in March until we do it again next year.
Yeah, I agree. The mid-major upsets and their run in the tournament historically is what makes the NCAA tournament great as it is. And, again, these sour grapes coming from, hot shots or bigwigs like Greg Sankey and Tom Izzo, Rick Pitino's of the world, or, just leaves a poor taste. And, I just hope that, even if it's expanding, it's not just to cater to big guys, but also, teams that missed out, like you said, Indiana State, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and stuff like that. Those are very intriguing storylines that I think that, college basketball fans deserve to, enjoy, not because of catering to Big Ten, ACC, or Big 12s and so of the world. So, all right, let's close out with another story. Over the weekend, U.S. men's national team won their third straight CONCACAF Nations League Cup. It was, I tell you, we would have been talking about the poor showing against their semifinal games against it was against Jamaica. Right. And they barely won on their last play of the ball game on a corner kick, which bounced around, and it turned out to be an own goal against the off a Jamaican defender, and the U.S. got a scare, and then in the extra time with Gio Reyna in the lineup as a substitute. And Haji Wright coming on, Wright scored 2 goals in extra time to get past Jamaica, which, was a poor showing, where players from Europe, Musa, Pulisic, Balogun, and so forth, the main guys on Greg Berhalter's lineup, they all look just tired, piss poor, and just look sluggish. Basically the entire game. And, literally within 30 seconds into the ball game, they conceded a goal, and they had to wait until less than 10 seconds left in the game with the, extra time included. They finally got the goal, not their own goal, but it was an own goal from a Jamaican player. So it was just a piss poor performance. And then on Sunday against Mexico, they completely dominated Mexico. Well, I wouldn't say dominated. Let me take that back. Sorry. And it was just an embarrassing start. First, Mexico at least didn't bunker down. put up defenders in front of the their goal, which U.S. has always had a very, very difficult time. Sorry about that. This is This is a Jamaica game against U.S. and we'll get to this in a little bit. But this was such an embarrassing because it was a game before Mexico and Panama in the semis on the same AT&T Stadium. It was such an empty, dead stadium.
Right.
And right. And I'm sure the fans are very at least they glad that they didn't go to a snooze fest there. So it is what it is, and it's certainly I'm going to try and play a clip here for the Mexico game. U.S. got the a well-deserving win against their long-time rival Mexico, who has kind of fallen hard the last 4 years or so. From the senior national team as well as the youth teams, they did not qualify to the Olympics this year. At least the U.S. Put up a better fight this time. Against the another longtime rival. Tyler Adams, who came back, was on a minute count, scored on an incredible goal just before halftime, because I think he knew that he was going to get substituted at halftime, so he just basically made the shot that counted. It was a screamer from probably 25, 30 yards out and beat the Guillermo Ochoa, the Mexican goalie. And then in the second half, Gio Reyna, who was somehow it was in the lineup, but he was sitting deep basically the entire first half for whatever reasons. Instead of in the playmaking position, here's the goal from Adams, that massive screamer there. Instead of being up front, he was sitting deep along with the defenders and somehow making him play like a defensive midfielding position for whatever reasons, which is one reason why U.S. struggled in the first half until this screamer from Tyler Adams. And then once they started to move Gio Reyna up more closer to the goal, that's when things started to get much, much better for the U.S. in the second half. And we're going to see a little, the magic, Christian Pulisic pulled off in the second half in a little bit here. Pulisic just basically blows by the defender from the left side back, and then just basically when the ball just kind of trickled around in front of a goalie, Gio Reyna came from the back and then just basically made a leaping volley, an incredible shot to beat the goalkeeper, and the U.S. manages to hold on to the victory. And I got to say this: the lineups, the players who are being called up are starting to show, starting to be much improved under Greg Berhalter, because we used to see so many, MLS players like Christian Roldan, Jordan Morris, Walker Zimmerman, Kellen Acosta, who used to be like some sort of a mainstay for the U.S. Lineup and also on the the roster for such a long time, even in the Qatar World Cup. And then once the Qatar World Cup, here's that Reyna's goal, such a wonderful goal, which Christian Pulisic basically beat the goalkeeper, and the ball just comes around. And then once the ball gets passed into the backside, Reyna just smashes it. And I'm starting to see some slow improvements from Berhalter, but like I said, Reyna playing deep. And, there's still, I don't know, there's a simmering issue between him and Reyna, and obviously his family that we've delved in the past many, many times, which we're not going to do. I did just see the, when Reyna was taken off in the second half late in the game, he and Reyna embraced each other at least. So, it's kind of interesting that the Reyna has shown more growth and maybe show more, adult-like approach Dan Berhalter's tactics and lineups. So, as long as Gio, who's having a real rough year, because of his injuries at Dortmund and being loaned out to Nottingham Forest, where he is basically haven't played much on a team that has recently lost points due to financial irregularities and now sitting in a relegation zone, unfortunately. This was a great opportunity for Gio, kind of a vindication that he hasn't played much. His issues with Greg Berhalter notwithstanding, but at least I think he has proven that he is a vital member of this U.S. lineup, and Berhalter better figure it out before he loses total control over the team. While he still has his usual suspects: Pulisic, Adams, McKinney, and Reina, all in a good relationship right now. So.
Well, you pretty much said everything I could say, but let me just add the one small thing here. Again, the behavior of the Mexican fans at the end of the game.
Thank you.
Throwing bottles filled with urine, making that ridiculous homophobic chant, and CONCACAF refusing to take really real action. I mean, yes, there was the game was halted so that the fans were thrown out who made those chants. But until CONCACAF takes a game away and puts it with no fans in the stand at home and takes money away from the Mexican Federation, we're going to continue to see this really, really bad behavior, Stephen.
Right, and I thank you for bringing that up to close out this show. It's become a massive headache. Their behaviors, especially here in the United States, because Mexican Federation has basically made the playing friendlies here in America in our own soil as some sort of a cash cow, and they have certainly benefited from it. But that has kind of enabled the fans' behavior. This isn't the first time.
Nope.
This has been played out so many times, and it has become really, and not only embarrassing, but it has also gotten a lot uglier on the stand as well, where fans are fighting. Whereas the Mexican fans fighting amongst each other. There was a photo of a U.S. soccer fan getting bloodied that I retweeted a couple of days ago. Their behaviors certainly needs to be called out, and deserves a strong punishment. But unfortunately, this was a CONCACAF sanctioned event. Okay, and certainly CONCACAF sees U.S. both Mexico and U.S. as a cash cow,
right?
And for a while, obviously Mexico has dominated the soccer in the region. Obviously they're kings. They draw strong fan attractions, especially here in the U.S., given all the Mexican fans, living in the States. And this is also goes to U.S. Soccer Federation, and what I just accidentally played a video of a very, very empty stadium between Jamaica and the U.S. in the first semifinal games before Mexico and Panama, which obviously filled out a lot better than the U.S. games. U.S. Soccer Federation is a very incompetent organization that has done absolutely nothing, in regards to handling this type of behavior in their home soil, and getting U.S. soccer fans bloodied up, and and God forbid if somebody gets stabbed or hurts badly to a point where they're either severely injured and paralyzed, or even worse, getting killed. Is U.S. Soccer Federation going to stand by and let their own fans get bloodied up like this? I have yet to hear anything coming out of Federation President Cindy Cohn-Pardo and the JT Baston making any sort of statement. which makes them even look weak and look dumber than they already are, from an outsider's perspective and the perception. And we know the perception is real. So these type of behaviors needs to be called out. FIFA won't do anything about the global issues with the violence and the human rights issues. I don't think they're going to do anything about the what's happened with the CONCACAF and the Mexican Soccer Federation and the fans' behavior. So I think it's time that maybe FIFA needs to start banning Mexican teams from participating. The big test is coming up this summer when the U.S. and Mexico and even Canada hosts Copa America. You have South American teams like Brazil, Argentina, and the several other nations coming up. Soccer, and we talk a lot about soccer violence in Europe, but South American fans have also been very, very violent, and also have been very, very homophobic as well. We talked about Vinicius Junior, talented Brazilian national team forward, and also a star with Real Madrid, who's had issues with racism happening in La Liga in the past, and he was recently seen crying, calling out the racism that he had to be dealt with in Spain and also around the world when he spoke in a press conference just before the friendlies against England. So it's not just a problem in Mexico, but I think it's just the South Americans and, the Latino fans and Latino communities as a whole. And I said this before, they have a problem on their hand too. So, if this sort of behavior, if Mexican fans keep getting away with it, they're never going to stop. And I think it's time that the U.S. Soccer Federation, start to put their foot down. Even though this is a CONCACAF event, they're being held here in America. And whatever happens in America, they have to be held responsible, whether it's the fan violence involving Mexican fans or the U.S. fans being attacked and then being even bloodied in general. So I do want more stronger stance taken by U.S. Soccer Federation if FIFA and the CONCACAF, they try to tread water and hoping that this thing will go away like they have done many, many times in the past. With the Copa America happening, that should not fly anymore.
Right. And with that, Stephen, I'm going to have to go. But I want to thank everybody for watching us. And don't forget, we came on a special night Wednesday because I wasn't available on Monday. But we usually on every Monday, usually around 7 o'clock, 7:30. And we like to invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll provide a link next week. Make sure to do that. I see a lot of people subscribing to our YouTube channel, Stephen, for the AA team. So we appreciate that. And Stephen always has guests coming on throughout the week to talk about the Bears and other subjects. We had a special podcast, as he mentioned earlier this week, with one of the beat writers for the Angels talking about Shohei Ohtani. So when we have special programming, we will let you know. And we thank you for watching us. Those of you who watched Anna Yurka last week, apparently you came back to watch us this week. So we really appreciate it. Any other final words, Stephen?
No, I also want to give a shout out to Shane Marsaw from the TTNL network yesterday. He and his followers came and, send a lot of shout outs and comments and really got engaged and, got some followers from them. And obviously some people came over from and subscribed to our channels as well. So, hopefully, we're definitely going to put it out there more often whenever we have special guests. Got more, NFL draft related guests coming up next month. And, hopefully, people will definitely tune in for that as, NFL draft happens in about a month from now. So for Ken Fang from the Alpha Announcing, my name is Stephen Negishi. We thank you for watching, and we look forward to having you on the next episode. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.